Last year, I stood in my bedroom and made a promise to myself. I promised I would swallow the pain. I promised I would forgive the unforgivable. I did it because I looked at my 7-year-old son, and I told myself that his family was worth more than my broken heart. My wife had an affair. I discovered it. We fought. We almost ended everything. But we didn't. We decided to stay together. For the kids. That was the deal. I thought I had hit the absolute bottom of pain. I was wrong. A few days ago, I was cleaning out her office, and I found a letter. It was handwritten, tucked inside an old book. My heart stopped. I thought, this is it. This is the final goodbye letter to her lover. But it wasn't. It was addressed to my son. She wasn't justifying the affair to me. She was justifying it to him. She was explaining to a 7-year-old why Mommy broke our family and why he shouldn't be mad at her. Today, I need to tell you what that letter said. Because the affair broke my heart, but this letter? This letter broke my son. And I have no idea how to put it back together. Before I read you the words from that letter, I need you to understand who we were. My name is Name, and for 10 years, I thought I had the perfect life. I met my wife, let's call her Sarah, in college. She was vibrant, artistic, the kind of person who made every room feel warmer. We had our son, Ethan, 7 years ago. He is our universe. He's sensitive, he asks a million questions, and he loves his mom more than anything in the world. About 2 years ago, I started noticing changes. Sarah was secretive with her phone. She was working late more often. You know the signs, because we've all either seen them or feared them. I'm not a writer. I'm not a storyteller. I'm just a guy who installs fixed systems for a living. But I am telling you this story because I know I can't be the only one this has happened to. And maybe, by putting this out there, I can figure out how to fix it. When I confronted Sarah about the affair, it was ugly. There was crying, there was screaming, there was blaming. She said she felt unseen. She said it was a mistake. For 2 months, we lived in this horrible limbo. We went to 3 counseling sessions. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. Ultimately, we decided to stay together. Not because the love was back, it wasn't. But because the thought of Ethan shuffling between the houses on weekends, the thought of him having to choose who to spend Christmas with. I couldn't do it. I told myself I was being strong. I told myself I was being selfless. Fast forward to last Tuesday. Sarah was out at a work dinner. I was in her home office looking for a stamp. I opened this old, leather-bound copy of The Giving Tree. It was her favorite book to read to Ethan when he was little. Tucked inside the dust jacket was an envelope. No name on it. Just Ethan written on the front in her handwriting. My first thought was sweet. She wrote him a letter for the future, like a time capsule. But then I felt the weight of it. It was thick. It was several pages. I know I shouldn't have read it. It wasn't addressed to me. But if you've been cheated on, you know that paranoia doesn't just go away. You know that trust isn't something you can just turn back on. So I opened it, and I started reading. The first line was innocent. My sweet Ethan, by the time you're old enough to read this, you'll be a big boy. There are things Mommy wants you to know. But by the second paragraph, my blood ran cold. She was detailing the timeline. She wrote, there was a man at work who made Mommy feel special when Daddy was too busy. It wasn't your daddy's fault, and it wasn't your fault. But Mommy needed a friend. Sometimes grown-ups need things that are hard to explain. I had to sit down. I read it 3 times. She was building a narrative. She was framing the affair not as a betrayal of our marriage, but as a necessary step for her own happiness. Then she was preemptively asking Ethan for his understanding, for his forgiveness. I asked myself, why would she do this? Was it guilt? Was she trying to control the narrative before I could tell him when he got older? Or was it worse? Was she actually trying to make sure that if we ever did split up, that Ethan would know Mommy had her reasons? There's a concept in family ethics called parental life writing. It's is when a parent writes the story of a child's life for them. Usually, it's innocent baby books, first steps. But in cases like this, it becomes a weapon. She was writing the story of our family's breakdown from her perspective and implanting it in his future. Think about the weight of that. Imagine being 16, going through a box of old things, and finding a letter from your mom justifying an affair. Telling you that your dad was too busy. Telling you that she was sad. That is not a letter of love. That is a letter of emotional transfer. She was trying to absolve herself of the shame, but in doing so, she was preparing to put the confusion and the moral judgment onto our son. A child who should never, ever have to judge his parents' sex lives. Sarah came home at 9:30 that night. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the letter in front of me. I didn't say a word. I just pushed it toward her. The color drained from her face. And then she got angry. She said, "You had no right to read that. It was private. It was for my son." I just stared at her. I said, "He's my son too, and you don't get to tell him your version of the truth without me." What followed was the most disturbing conversation of my life. She admitted that she wrote it because she was scared. She said, "What if you turn him against me? What if you tell him I'm the bad guy?" I needed him to know I loved him. And that's when the deepest cut happened. I realized that her concern wasn't about fixing us. It wasn't about protecting Ethan from pain. It was about protecting her image. It was damage control. The affair was a betrayal of our marriage. But this letter? This letter was a betrayal of the entire concept of honest parenthood. She was willing to use our son as an emotional shield. She was willing to make him her confidant, her judge, her jury. She was robbing him of his childhood innocence just to make sure she didn't look like the villain in his eyes. It's been 4 days since I found the letter. I haven't shown it to Ethan. I burned the copy, but I kept the original. I keep it as a reminder. We are not staying together anymore. Not after this. I realized that a broken home isn't one where the parents live apart. A broken home is one where the truth is twisted, where a child is used as a pawn, where loyalty is demanded through manipulation. I sat Ethan down yesterday. I didn't tell him about the affair. I didn't tell him about the letter. I told him that sometimes mommies and daddies have a hard time being friends, and that it's better for everyone if they live in different houses. He cried. He asked if it was his fault. I held him and told him no. This is grown-up stuff. None of this is your fault. And for the first time in years, I wasn't lying. None of this was his fault. The affair wasn't his fault. And the letter? The letter was a last-ditch attempt by a woman who wanted to save herself, even if it meant drowning her son in confusion. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how Sarah and I will co-parent. But I know one thing for sure. I will never let anyone use my son as a sounding board for their sins. He is 7 years old. He gets to be 7 years old. He doesn't need to understand why mommy needed a friend. If you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, whether you've been betrayed or you raise struggling with how to talk to your kids about a broken relationship, I want you to hear this. Kids are resilient, but they are not adults. They cannot process adult emotions. They cannot be your therapist. They cannot be your judge. If you are going through a divorce or a separation or a crisis, please keep the details away from them. Tell them you love them. Tell them it's not their fault. And leave it there. I'm not a professional. I'm just a dad who almost lost his son to a piece of paper. But I've spent the last 72 hours reading about this, talking to a therapist my own, finally, and learning about parental alienation and emotional boundaries. If you want to protect your children from the toxic fallout of a relationship breakdown, I've put some links in the description below. Books, articles, and helplines that actually help me see clearly. And you? If you've been through something like this, or if you've ever been tempted to tell your kid too much, tell me your story in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in this. And maybe, together, we can figure out how to raise good humans even when we feel like broken ones. Thanks for listening. Take care of your kids. And take care of yourselves.